No doubt by now that if you've tried to make the run from Wild's End to Thronefast, you've noticed that there's a number of mobs that have been added to the game as of the most recent patch. As such, I've decided to make a new video with an update to a few things, including a slightly faster route, a slightly safer route, and some bad news. At first I had intended only to go over the AVP portion of my original guide, and then I thought, maybe I should go back and check it all. And when I did, I learned that there were some more additions that hadn't been mentioned, namely a number of mobs in one of the previous safe spots that was used to get up a side of a mountain. So with that in mind, I think it's best if I just redo the whole thing, or at least go over the parts that have changed. Something I quickly discovered is that these new Orc Camps were very highly populated with anyone that was of level to do them, which wasn't going to make a very conducive guide because it would make it seem like it was a lot easier to move through this zone than it ended up being. So in order to get a more accurate idea of what someone might experience if there wasn't a lot of people online, I thought it might be best to find a place where there just wasn't so many people, which meant it was time to change servers. I don't intend for this video to be as long as my last one, but I do want to explain why I'm going over what I'm going over. Due to recent changes in the patches and where mobs spawn, there are a few spots in my last guide that just aren't as safe to travel through anymore. Not only that, but to be honest, going back over this guide and doing this from a new way, I'm not exactly sure why I didn't go this way in Wild's End to begin with, but it's a lot easier and a lot safer. To be honest, there's not a whole lot to say in this part of the guide. You're really just heading north. Just point your compass to the north, follow this path out of town until it veers off to the side, and you're more or less headed in the right direction. There's not a whole lot to say, but I also can't cut much out unless I wanted people to risk getting lost. So just bear with me as I zoom through this beginning part of Wild's End, or jump ahead to the part that you need help with. Eventually, the path will veer off to the east and you'll continue north, where you'll actually run into a small line of goblins where you want to turn to your left and head up a hill. From there, it's back north and across some rocky outcroppings. The general rule of thumb here is try to be going upwards, and keep your compass pointed north. You'll need to duck and weave around some of the local wildlife, but as you can see, that's not really a problem. Just be careful where you run. Once you run into these owlbears, you're pretty much in the very last stretch. Although I'd take a moment to stop and look at them because they're freaking adorable. Once you've had your fill, continue along your way, watch out for wildlife, stay to the left, point your compass north, and you'll find yourself in the Eastern Plains. If you're watching this video, it's pretty likely you watched my last video, which means you already know how to navigate the Eastern Plains. However, I'm going to go through a few key points and get to one of the main differences between this run and my original run. Until we get to that point, work your way up to the original ridge. Move through the pass, being sure to stay on the midline between the upper and lower ridge. And move to the rocks that I originally designated as a safe spot. From here, just like last time, you're going to move around the rocks to the north. However, something has changed. I'm not quite sure when this happened, but the tents that you'll see off in the distance contain mobs that are now cold or indifferent to you, which means you can pass through their camp without being bothered by them whatsoever. This will greatly reduce our travel time and put us in a perfect setup to run right up to the ridge that will lead us to the abandoned village. Once you get to this bend in the lake, you'll confirm that you're nearly parallel with the island, and then you'll point your compass north by northwest and head directly there. You won't find many mobs in the way, so just be careful where you're running, and you'll soon see a familiar slope that leads up to the abandoned village. I highly recommend that you bind at this point because the next part's gonna get rough. I'm not going to sugarcoat it or lie to you. This next part doesn't really have a good trick to get past it. It took me long enough to find a safe enough route, but even the route I found wasn't very safe. It cost me probably a few hours and a number of deaths to get to the point where I even had something that was showable. But to be completely honest, the addition of these orcs in such a small pass, with no ability to go around them whatsoever, makes this next part really hard. The original drop-down point actually puts you right in the path of a patrolling orc and right next to two hostile mobs, making it a little more risky, so I came up with a second way that you can drop down. Though to be completely honest, this doesn't make things much easier, as it just means there's more orcs to run through. Regardless, if you want to use the second drop-down point, just head west from the tops of the cliffs in AVP. You'll see one of the structures from the Silent Plains that you can jump down onto, and from there fall to the ground. Personally, I opted to use the old fall route. Even though it puts me directly in danger, it saves a bunch of time and it actually bypasses a bunch of orcs that are closer to the Silent Plains, so I just kind of risked it for the biscuit. This is where the majority of my commentary is going to come in, because from here, things get dire. You need to drop down and hope it's safe. Unfortunately, the tree sort of blocks your view, so you kind of have to hope. And you're headed along the same direction that you were before, but there's just a lot more things to dodge. What you're really aiming for is this rock right in front of me. There's not really a great way to get to it, but you're gonna have to sneak around mobs one way or the other, so just be careful. If you can make it up to the top, you can at least relax because nothing patrols close enough to see you up there. The trick is getting up there safely. And the trick is, there is no trick. You just have to be fast and careful. This is going to be the part that make or breaks your run. Here, at the top of this rock, you're going to see three orcs that are kind of congregated together, and you need to get to that cliffside on the other side. The problem is there's no real good time to run, so you just have to wait until two of them are far enough apart and not looking at each other and make a mad dash for it. Once you're past the orcs, continue forward, and you're going to try and get up on this rock face. Thankfully, if you can get up here without anything getting you, it's going to be a pretty easy time for the rest of the run. Continue along the cliffside, headed to the east, and be mindful of things that patrol near it. Every so often, you'll probably have to pause and wait as something gets a little too close, but thankfully, if you're up here, you can also just jump off the side if something aggroes you, and you'll have a better chance of living. Once you've made it to the edge of this cliff, you can jump right off and head for the water. From here, it's essentially the same as my last guide with no adjustments. You can just swim across to the other side, hug the wall, and get to Dem. The question to ask ourselves now is it really worth making this run? And the answer is maybe. I mean, it'll give you a sense of adventure, and it's a lot more fun than sitting around and waiting for someone to teleport you. But at this stage in the game, people are giving away teleports for free, so maybe it's worth just sitting around and waiting for a friendly wizard to help you out. But where's the adventure in that? And besides, while the things like teleports are available now, they won't be available at launch. What if you're playing with a group of friends and they want to play elves and you want to play humans? How are you going to get to one another? Even if this guide isn't helpful now, hopefully there will be a time in the future where someone does get some use out of it. Either way, I had a lot of fun making it. If there's another guide that you'd like to see me make, please leave it in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe so that the algorithm monster leaves me alone. Thanks, and good luck.